Okay. How A Tale of Two Cannons came to be. I got invited to go to a private Bible college in Kansas that focused on biblical research. And so I ended up being faculty there when I was 24. They made me dean soon after that of one of our small satellite things. And because my thesis paper, I did it in 3 weeks instead of 9 months, and got funding on it, and they said put me on faculty. But because of that, I learned how to study history. So years ago, after we moved back here, I wanted to put what I used to teach at the university or college level in a first grade book. And so I wrote this one. It's called Bible Study 101, Keys to Understanding the Word of God. Now, the Bible is a historic book, is it not? It was written a long time ago by different people throughout history, and it's well documented and stuff. And so we scientifically show you how to put it together. As a result of that, I was part of a team. I wasn't on the team at the time, but after I graduated, I was part of it. But we're the ones that put the birth of Christ together, and it's September 11th, 3 BC at exactly 6 p.m. So I tell you that because of the detail that we try to put into everything that we do. So years later, somebody bet me in a bar kind of situation. If you'll put your name on the ballot, you'll probably win for a state representative seat. I said, why would I want to do that? And he goes, worst thing that happen is you win. Long story short, I did not win, but I was intrigued because I sat down and I read the Mississippi Constitution, and there was a clause in our Bill of Rights. I don't know what a Bill of Rights is. I'm like everybody else. I grew up in Mississippi. I am a Mississippian. I was born somewhere in Jackson by somebody that loved me enough to put me up for adoption. So, and I was adopted into the Slovo family. So I have ties here and I have ties in central Mississippi. So it's been a wonderful family. Anyway, that clause in the Constitution in our Bill of Rights says, quote, the Holy Bible cannot be excluded from any public school in this state. Has it ever been in your schools in your entire life? In the classroom? As a course?
No, but as an available book.
Right, but that's not being in the classroom. So anyway, Mississippi they're kind of slow to catch up to things. Anyway, we got it in Oklahoma already. We got the 10 Commandments in Louisiana. We're still working with Mississippi to come around before we sue the crap out of the whole country. So anyway, but now we have the things to do that. I do write Supreme Court cases. I've won a few. And but we don't put our name on anything because we don't want people to know. We want the information to speak for itself. So, because of that one clause, I wanted to know how it got there, why it got there, could it be constitutional, is it constitutional? Because that is way beyond anything I've ever imagined in my life. So I spent the next 4 years and I wrote this. My wife and I went to places all over the world getting detailed information for this. Well, she has friends or family sorta in Holland. So we got to go to Leiden. I've got access to the Leiden library where the Pilgrims came from and all of their records and things. And so we put this book together, and it is a Supreme Court case for the Bible in the schools. There's not one thing in here that is not certified already as 100% accurate. But it is a history book, it is a law book, it is, it's kind of, you can read it, you gotta read it a chapter at a time to digest all the stuff that we put in it. So it's more of an academic thing, but it will hold up in court. Chapter 20, Tale of Two Cannons. Chapter 20, of course, I'm going through American history, starting with Christopher Columbus's personal diary. So what did he say he sailed for? It was a missionary trip. What?
Yeah.
It was a missionary trip. Okay, so starts there, goes here. I just found out something just last week. I was looking at some stuff. Next thing we want to do is the Pilgrims. But there's this Latin phrase that said something, something, something was built, Rome was built this way. And then in this American, the first history of America, written in the 1600s, says America was built for Christ. And I'm sitting there going, wow. That's why they came over here. That's why the Pilgrims. That's why every single colony was settled. Every single colony's original charter says that the purpose, the preamble of every single charter for the glory of God and the advancement of the Christian faith. So we can take that one sentence and prove in court that that's why you have to have the Bible in the schools. Because the purpose of America as it founded, the courts today talk about the historical relevance of things, that we've finally gotten back to that thinking in our courts is mind-boggling. It has to be miraculous. So anyway, here's 1,000 precedents for that one sentence. But chapter 20 is about the American Revolution. And so I'm sitting there reading the original history books, and I'd come across, and every single history book that I read said, this is the guy that fired the first shot. Now, all we're taught today is nobody knows who fired the first shot. I've got access to the gun. The curator that has it doesn't know what she's got. And so, back to the Jesus stuff. This building right here is a church. It doesn't have a steeple on it because it's Puritan. This group of men here is the men's Sunday school group for that church. The guy in the green coat was Special Forces in the French and Indian War. He was also the head elder for that church. The pastor of that church was the most significant politician in Massachusetts. He was the mentor to John Hancock and Samuel Adams. John Hancock and Samuel Adams were in the parsonage of that church on that night. See where we're going with this? Where in the Bible do you find the militia? Where in the Bible do you find the militia? So we don't think that way. We're not taught that way. We've been robbed of our history. But yet it's mandatory that we have a militia in our Bill of Rights. We don't have a militia in our Bill of Rights. Why? Probably because it's biblical. The whole entire book of Numbers in the Old Testament is the militia. They shall number their armies. Every able-bodied man, you ever hear that about military service? Comes from the first chapter of the book of Numbers. Every male is to be armed and trained in the art of war to protect your families, your wives, your families, and the cities of your God. Wow. And that's just the first page. What we did with the guy, his name is Bill. Bill, like I said, my friend James posted on his social thing, and then he sent it directly to this guy. And he says, "You've got to read this book. I think you'll like it." So he read it halfway through and offered us a contract. He wanted to be the first to get it. And but once we started going through it, he said, "But the thing is, you have to write the screenplay." And I look at her and I go, do you know what that is? And she goes, we've made it, we faked it till we made it up this far, you know. But he said, after I go through this, I spent probably 6 months writing just what they call the Bible for the screenplay. It's the biographies of all the characters and then how they interact and all the different scenes and all those kind of things. And I sent this thing to him, 130 pages. And he goes, oh my God, the biggest one I've ever seen was 40.
Wow.
So, but that's how many named, like 300 named characters are absolutely 100% real. And their personal journals and stories of what they did. The ladies, oh my gosh. They ran the show in a lot of ways, just like y'all do today.
We don't kill anybody.
I think this is just for me. I would love it if the DAR would tell everybody in DAR about this story, and then after it goes viral, tell the SAR, you could have had it first. Anyway, but I think it should go viral. But I will tell you this, these two books right here are in the most famous house in America. Pick one, but the first one's probably right. But I'm not at liberty to use the word. So anyway, they're using it. You can see it in things that are coming out in the news and different things that they're talking about and doing it, especially with abolishing the Department of Education, as well as putting Christian values and Christian everything back into our culture without interference. Where did they get the idea? Okay, I work with a really great team. I'm not a solo act. We just don't tell people who we are because we don't care. We care about the information and getting it out to people. That's what's the most valuable about it. And everything that we get, everything that we got today is going to go back into the mission of teaching as much as we can about American history in as many ways that we want. But what Bill said, can we go back like 10 years before the book? Sure, why not? And he goes, how are you going to do that? I said, it's real simple. I take the history books, there's 30 pages of documentation in here of sources. I take those exact same books and go back a few chapters. He was like, what? I said, yeah, elementary history books of America. Just go back, because they told us everything that they did and how they did it, because don't we swear an oath to protect and defend the Constitution they wrote? Well, if we don't know who they were and how they did it and why they did it and all those kind of things, we're pulling straws. It's a philosophical debate, no better than Rome and Greece. You got the Epicureans and the Stoics, and neither can agree on anything because there's no bedrock answers to the problems. So you get one administration that people like, some of them, and then you get another administration of people that like it and some of them don't. Well, that's not consistency. That's not law either. There's no opinion to a law. Stop signs are pretty simple. Well, every law is supposed to be that simple according to what they said. We have to make this so simple that the least educated American can understand it fully. Not some person that sits in a black robe telling everybody else what they think about what it should be. We should know it that well. But since we've not taught it, and this is first grade stuff. This is first grade stuff.
Or should they?
God, well, it was.
Or should they?
It was until they started this thing called the Department of Education and took it all out. I found a history book right after the Civil War by this female lady, and I forget which one it was because of, what do you call it, an upgrade that I didn't have saved in iCloud. So I had this huge digital library and I lost a lot of it. Anyway, I couldn't find that same book. But this lady said, when did we quit teaching who fired the first shot? Everybody knows it. They taught it all over Europe. I'm going to put it in my book. So that was the last time it was in a history book. It was in like 1880 was the last time it was published.
I just have a question. When you're talking about this story, this particular story that took place, what state or colony?
Okay, this is
are
the Shot
you-
Heard Around the World Day.
So
This
you're
was
talking about
Massachusetts colony.
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts colony. This is the town of Lexington. The Shot Heard Round the World Day. Here's another interesting thing. This guy here in the front with the tricorn hat, this is a man named Prince Estabrook. We should know him by heart because he is the most famous soldier in the Revolution because he started from the very first shot and served to the very last shot. And he was wounded protecting the drummer on this morning. This happened at 4:30 in the morning. We see in all the documentaries where they come marching up in the daylight with the bands and the flags, and they stop and stare at each other, and then somewhere, somehow, somebody decides to pull a trigger. Nobody knows who did it. And then they kind of look at each other and say, well, let's just start shooting at each other. Well, this happened at 4:30 in the morning. Of course, they don't know who did it. Couldn't see nothing. But anyway, these people saw it because it was 15 yards in front of their face. So that story is in here. But you are the descendants of these people. And I'm so honored to be here and share this with you. If you have any questions, I'm free to answer them if I can. But if you want to invite me to do classes or seminars or any of those kind of things, talk with my business manager over here. Our fees are pretty exorbitant. Just buy some books, and we'll drive anywhere for free. But if we fly somewhere, we appreciate the flight fare. But our son's a pilot, so we can fly pretty cheap. Was it? Anyway, he's a pilot, so we can fly pretty cheap. So I'd really like to have questions from y'all. And go ahead.
Have you been to that American Revolution museum?
That big cycle, yeah.
in
I have not.
Philadelphia?
I've seen a lot of stuff on it, but I haven't seen it. I work with Colonial Williamsburg, and I'm known as that guy. And so when I let them know I'm coming, I'll tell them, and they'll say, okay, we have this new character, or we have a new George Washington, so go interview George Washington. So we were there a couple of years ago. It was Christmas, that era, 1861. So they tell me where he's going to be. So I go there, him and Martha come up on horses, and they start talking to this doctor who's in the book. And I'm sitting there going, man, I'm standing next to this guy. This is pretty cool. And so I started asking questions about his canoe trip up and down the Ohio River after the French and Indian War. And then Martha goes, and I just ask a question like anybody else, and just, I'm in a big crowd, and just, hey, George. And then Martha goes, don't get him started on catfish. If you get him talking about catfish, we're going to be here for 2 hours. We have to be at the governor's mansion tonight, and I have got to go home and do my hair. So they ride off, and I go walking off in the crowd just like any other tourist, you know, do. Next thing you know, I got these two horses squeezing me together. Martha reads over and she goes, you're that guy, aren't you? This is the first time they warned us you were coming, but we didn't know who was going to get hit. How did we do? And I said, 100% perfect. Because they have to know, the point of this is they have to know their character inside and out for their entire life to get that job.
Oh, wow.
And I was asking him about his personal journal along that river, and what he did. He kept a record of the catfish, and he was so amazed that at Mount Vernon, the biggest one he ever caught was 10 pounds, and they averaged on the Ohio River about 40 to 50 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Little tidbit of history, but it brings the humanity to George Washington, does it not?
Yeah.
We have a character there now that I helped, because I went there and I asked them, went to the archives, and I said, what do you have on this certain person? Because he won the war by himself. He was a black man, and Lafayette got permission, I think, from his dad to be the quartermaster for the Continental Army when they came to, Cornwallis and all that stuff. And he was a slave, but I think his dad was his dad. His owner was his dad. Anyway, I wanted to. After the war, he was given his pension. He bought 40 acres and 8 slaves. I wanted to know if he bought his family. So I asked the curator that, and he goes, "My God, where do you come up with questions like that?" I said, "Well, I was just looking at his picture and reading his history, and it crossed my mind. How could this slave buy slaves if it wasn't for this? Do you have the records?" And he said, "If it wasn't burnt in Richmond in the Civil War, we have it here. Give me some time." He's a reenactor. And that guy got him the job. So I tell you that because we're serious when we say we don't do this for ourselves. We do this for America. And my team is amazing. And we're making a movie. But they want to go from before the Tea Party and the Boston Massacre and go all the way to Yorktown.
Oh, wow.
That's going to take years. Let's get the first one in the can. Anyway, I tell you that because it's your story. These people want to take it from beginning to end. But we got to hit the first one out of the park.
Yeah.
I think the team that we have can do it. And it's going to be fun. I mean, really. But what we're going to do, it's not, instead of being titled A Tale of Two Cannons, and she brought this up when I was writing the book. She goes, where did all these kids come from? This is hilarious. And I said, well, it's real. Well, where'd you find it? I found it in the history books. The real history. What history book? The Boys of Boston. The spy ring that they put together was just incredible. Nobody ever considered that the kids had their tentacles in everything. They're shining the boots, they're serving the tables, they're saddling the horses of the British soldiers, and just all the way through it. So they want to title it The Boys of Boston and Their Tale of Two Cannons. The two cannons are real. They're real. They're on display in Concord, one of them is. The American Revolution was fought over these 2 3-pounder cannons. It was a spy versus spy, steel and steelback caper from the beginning all the way to Yorktown. So we can follow characters from first shot to last shot, possibly following the tale of the cannons. And they're called the Hancock and Adams cannons. You can go to the National Park Service and search A Tale of Two Cannons. That'll come up before my book. So it's all real. Any other questions?
What's the website we go to?
National Park Service. You can just search A Tale of Two Cannons and it comes up on National Park Service first, and then my book on Amazon. So, any other questions?
Which cannons? I didn't know why it was named A Tale of Two
Yeah, A
Cannons.
Tale of Two
So you just
Cannons.
answered that.
That's why it's called A Tale of Two Cannons.
How about the children's book, the first one?
That's just the screenplay. That's all we've written on that yet, but she's an artist, and so we're hashing around maybe doing a kid's book, and she can
Aren't you dead
illustrate
right
it.
there?
Oh,
What's
your
that?
Bible.
Oh, this one is the Bible Study 101. This is how to study history from using the Bible as the format.
And can
But
you
it-
buy that one also?
Yes, ma'am, I have them back there.
Okay.
They're 25, 20, 25, and 30. And
Is this gonna be a theater movie or a TV type thing?
it is going to be a series, similar to what you would see with something along the level of Yellowstone,
Oh, okay.
but not those same people. Well, not the same, not the same
language.
studio. I mean, we really don't have a studio yet, but, I was talking with the writer's husband, and they assured me that they already have people that are interested, because they were talking about it in their last film that they had done. But, you know, interest and contracts are two different things, cause, you know, people talk, so, but they're talking in ways that we like to hear. So, but that's just where things stand now.
I would like to point out that, I think you're the one that told me, that all of the dialogue in there comes from diaries of people. I mean, the dialogue is not made up, it's legitimate.
Yes.
It's a fascinating
Yes,
book.
this is classified as a historic novel because some of the conversations aren't 100% accurate. Some of the unnamed characters are not a real person, but they represent someone that did that task. Like some of the servants, they weren't named, but so we don't name them either, but the conversations are still from the people that were in the room when whatever things happened. And so that's why this is classified as a novel. And the same thing with what we're doing with the beginning stuff is it's more close to the actual conversations that the people had than this one is in some ways. But they wrote everything down. They told their stories to their families, and their families still have the records. And if you know how to use Google search, and AI now is even faster, you can find pretty much anything you want. And it just takes time and understanding how to do it. And then you have to ferret through years and years of writings to get to the acorn that became the tree. That's what we try to do, is we go, but we want, where did it start? Who started it? Because what he says about what he did is more valid than what did you say, Balducci talked about? All I can say is look at his bibliography and see if you see anything in there that's older than this 1960s.
I don't think there's any, I don't even think it has
As
Yes,
their sources.
bibliography.
I know the guy that wrote John Adams, he didn't quote any sources older than the 1960s. That's neither here and that's neither good or bad, but it's been told and told and retold like the telephone story.
Yeah.
So we, like, when I found, before I wrote anything about Columbus, I found his personal letter to the Queen of Spain. I wasn't looking for it, it just showed up, you know, in the searches. I knew where to search, I just didn't know. He says, I want to do a missionary trip to India to fulfill the request of Genghis Khan to send missionaries to teach them about Christianity. What? Wasn't find a trade route to the Indies? That was the investors that sent him. So we hear the investor's story, not his. Why? Because it's about the economy, stupid. You know, see how things change through the time? It's all about the economic stuff about the American history and American, the war and why they fought about, you know, no taxation without representation. They just wanted a seat at the table. They knew they'd lose the vote. But their constitution said we have the right to vote. Even though we're gonna lose, we want the right to vote. So we cover every bit of that in both of these books, but the next one, you're gonna see where the Fourth Amendment came from, where the Second Amendment came from, unwarranted searches and seizures, no warrants, why you can't have a trial for $20 that doesn't have a jury in it. All that's in there in its original arguments and discussions. So some of those things I think is fun.
It's interesting.
But here, ma'am?
You got a website?
Yes, it is very Spartan right now because of censorship, but you can go to libertyman.online. libertyman.online. That's our website, and but we do have 2 YouTube channels that are not censored anymore. And that is, just because all you have to do is put Bible or Jesus Christ in a political post, it's gone. And I'm like, where did all this go? What did I do? I don't know. I just keep doing what I do. People like it or they don't. Not my problem. I just put it out there and y'all do what you want with it. But we would love to find an attorney that will have the guts to file cases. And all he's got to do is put his name on the lawsuit and we'll give him the answer and he'll get famous. We've done that a few times, but not in Mississippi. So, I was remodeling her office. She found a folder that somebody had given her years ago, about this thick. She opened it up, and the first page, she goes, "This is a family tree." And it started in 1630 in Plymouth. You go to Plymouth now, the burial hill is Coal Hill. The main street in the colonial Plymouth area is Cole Street. She is Clarice Marie Cole. So when she got to the American Revolution, well, she asked me, so we go through the page. Ephraim Cole, Plymouth Militia, Continental Army. I'm pretty sure Valley Forge to the end. You know, and so I can be part of DAR. And she plays tennis with Martha and some others, and she was just so excited. My cousin recently stepped down as the genealogist for DAR. Her name is Margaret Powell, and you may or may have heard of her neither. But I've been listening to DAR genealogy for decades.
Don't say that with so much enthusiasm.
Well, I didn't have a vested interest in it. And then when I called her and told her about Clarice's thing, she screamed. And she found the genealogy within an hour. She's the fastest certification ever. That's what Margaret told me. Because it was already done to her grandparents. All she had to do was get her grandparents' birth death certificate, her parents' death certificate, her birth certificate, and she was done. So that's how we end up here. And I thank you for taking the time to let me come talk about what we're doing. Invite you to come along with us. But this is your story, and we're going to bring it to life. And we're hoping we can bring it from day one to as far as, you know, at the end. And
thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate you sharing all
and
that.
I do have books back there.
I was gonna say that. So guys, you guys have some books back here if you'd like to purchase them. I bought some more. They're great gifts. They're great gifts. But you gotta read it yourself first.
Okay.
But thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're gonna get his